Nothing but the same for me. Heartbroken into where my brain should be. Wait for me. Don't leave without a second glance. Not again. Oh, what a shame, what a shame. Oh, what a shame, what a shame. Oh, what a shame, what a shame. God's gone, God's gone, God's gone. God's gone, God's gone, God's gone. For once, can you listen? Is that too much to ask for? Before the seasons change, before it gets cold, can you at least pretend? Can you at least pretend? Life of a pessimist, only a fool believes there is a God in the sky who listens to the plea of his child. How could he leave us all alone? Leave us all alone. How could he leave us all alone? Leave us all alone. Oh, what a shame, what a shame. Oh, what a shame, what a shame. Oh, what a shame, what a shame. God's gone, God's gone, God's gone. God's gone, God's gone, God's gone. For once, can you listen? Is that too much to ask for? Before the seasons change, before it gets cold, can you at least pretend? Can you at least pretend?
Can you listen? Is there too much to ask for? Before the seasons change, before it gets cold, can you at least pretend? Can you at least pretend?
Okay, I'm here and I'm just gonna do a quick sound check. I'm not sure if anybody's in here, so I'm just gonna see myself if I can hear myself. Hold on a second. Okay, so the sound seems fine. All right, and so we meet again, whoever's in here, whoever's gonna come in here to talk about some philosophy, my new favorite thing to talk about and learn about. So tonight I'm going to be talking about mostly nihilism. And I'm also going to be talking a little bit about some related topics like different forms of existentialism, as well as absurdism. And maybe I'll touch on like some, well, I'll get to that. So I'm also going to be doing a review of the movie Annihilation. And when I say review, I mean, I think it's a good movie, but I'm not talking about a review as in like, is it good or is it not? But I'm talking about just like a breakdown of, you know, a way that you could look at it. So I can't say it's the meaning of it, right? It's only based on what I see, you know. I didn't look into anybody else's reaction to the movie or how anybody else you know, whatever they take it to mean, anybody else's symbolism, you know, anything like that. I didn't look at anything like that. So this is all from me. And then I did consult ChatGPT just because I had watched the movie recently. Anyway, but then I started learning about nihilism, and then I was like, okay, I think this movie is kind of nihilistic. And then I realized, okay, nihilism, annihilation. So I just thought it would be a good show topic. So whoever just came in, thank you. Hit the like, please. Good to see you. If you're just passing through, that's fine. But I love it if you stay. Okay, um, so I'm not gonna spend like the whole show or the whole time I'm up here just reading like definitions and stuff. But I do think that that's a good way to start. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to talk about the idea of nihilism. Okay. And we're using Wikipedia because Wikipedia is my favorite. Okay, so nihilism. Nihilism is a family of philosophical views that reject the existence of any objectively meaningful purpose, moral value, truth, or knowledge. Nihilistic views span several branches of philosophy, including ethics, value theory, epistemology, and metaphysics. Nihilism is also described as a broad cultural phenomenon or historical movement that pervades modernity in the Western world. Okay, so we see it, yeah, like they said, it's a family of philosophical views. So um, nihilism can apply to any of these three ideas, any of these three abstract ideas. But today I'm going to be focusing on this right here, nihilism as it relates to like meaning, the meaning that we attach to the world and purpose. So I kind of already discussed this in previously when I've been up here. When I talked about objective morality or the idea of objective morality and just, relativism and things like that. And knowledge, we actually did talk about this as well a few weeks ago. And it was just in relation to the fact that we can only see out our eyes, like, and we hear what we hear, but we don't know what anybody else is seeing. We don't know if our mind is deceiving us. So we kind of talked about that too. So but like I said, today I'm going to be talking about nihilism as it relates to meaning. Okay, so which is existential nihilism. So existential nihilism asserts that life has no objective meaning or purpose. The idea that all individual and societal values are ultimately pointless has been associated with various responses. They range from general indifference and existential crises to transformative reinterpretations of established ideals and a creative embrace of personal meaning making. Moral nihilism, a related view, denies the objective existence of morality, arguing that moral evaluations and practices rest on misguided assumptions without any foundation in external reality. Okay, so this one is talking about meaning. All right. Okay, so let me just say this. Now, I learned about nihilism. I'm not going to say I learned about it, but let's just say one of my classes taught about it, but I wasn't really paying attention a while back because it was a philosophy class. And I never really quite understood it. I thought of it as maybe like pessimism or cynicism or something like that. But the reality is it's not inherently negative. Some people view it as negative, but I think the point is that we can assign our own meaning and find our own meaning and our own purpose in the things that we do. It doesn't have to be defined externally. So that's what I take it to mean. And then we will see as we're kind of going through this that a philosopher, like a very well-known philosopher, his name is, and then I'm going to butcher his name, Friedrich Nietzsche. That is the conclusion that he ultimately came to regarding nihilism. Okay, so all right. Nihilism has often been associated with certain disillusioned attitudes toward the world, like pessimism, absurdism, existentialism, cynicism, and apathy. Although there is some overlap between these concepts, they have distinct meanings and do not necessarily imply nihilism or vice versa. Pessimism contrasts with optimism as a negative outlook focused on bad outcomes and characterized by hopelessness. A key difference to nihilism, according to one interpretation, is that pessimists see the world as inherently bad, whereas nihilists deny it has any positive or negative meaning. Absurdism argues that the world is not just meaningless, as existential nihilism asserts, but also absurd. It examines absurdity arising from paradoxical attempts to find meaning in an inherently meaningless universe. Um, Existentialism is a philosophical tradition that addresses absurdist and nihilist views while exploring the human condition through themes like anxiety, death, freedom, and authenticity. So I won't go over cynicism and apathy. I think we kind of know what that means. So, um, the word nihilism is a combination of the Latin term nihil, meaning nothing, and the suffix ism, indicating an ideology. Its literal meaning is ideology of nothing or ideology of negation, reflected in terms like annihilate and nihility. Um, okay, so okay, and here they mention Friedrich Nietzsche right here. All right. Thanks to anybody that just came in. Say hello. Okay, existential nihilism. And I think that's the largest part of nihilism. And whoever just came in, well, I'm also going to be doing a movie review. So it's not going to be just me reading Wikipedia, just so you know. All right. All right, hold on a second. Okay, existential nihilism asserts that life has no objective meaning or purpose. It is not limited to the idea that some people fail to find meaning in their lives, but makes the broader claim that human existence in general, or the world as a whole, lacks a higher purpose. This view suggests that living a genuinely meaningful life is impossible, that there is no higher reason to continue living, and that all efforts, achievements, happiness, and suffering are ultimately pointless. That sounds pretty depressing, but like I said, there's a positive side to this. So, existential nihilism has diverse practical implications since people usually act with a purpose in mind, sometimes with the explicit goal of making their lives meaningful. As a result, the belief that there is no higher meaning or purpose can bring about indifference, a lack of motivation, and anxiety. In extreme cases, this can result in depression and despair or trigger an existential crisis. Okay. So what this reminds me of is when a person I don't want to say, hey Roxy, thanks for dropping by. Drop me a like, please. I relate this idea and then the reactions that they list is to the situation of a person losing their faith, quote unquote, losing their faith or stepping away from religion, because it can result in depression and an existential crisis, and maybe a lack of motivation, anxiety, things like that. And I did experience something like that, like in 2021, like 2020/2021. Okay, so, but then, I already did a live on this topic, not fully on that topic, but somewhat. And I started out saying like what you lose from stepping away from religion, then turned it into what you gain from stepping away from religion. So it's kind of like that. It's not all bad. Okay, so Friedrich Nietzsche proposed that accepting the lack of an otherworldly source of meaning can liberate individuals from inherited dogmas to affirm life without illusions. He sought to use the disruptive force of nihilism to reinterpret or reevaluate all established ideals and values in an attempt to overcome nihilism and replace it with an affirmative attitude toward life. Okay, so that's a lot. But I think what he's saying is basically like tearing down all the meaning that's been given to you, that's been created for you. Tear down the image that you've been given and paint your own picture. If that makes sense. So let's say somebody gives you a picture. Okay, a picture is nice, but if it's supposed to be your life, you don't have to just accept what somebody else gave you. You can make your own. So I think nihilism, it to me it relates to concepts like freedom, critical thinking, free thought, authenticity, things like that. So I don't associate nihilism with pessimism and cynicism and things like that. Um, okay, John Paul Sartre suggested people can create their own values through the free choices they make despite the cosmic lack of meaning. Okay, so when they say cosmic lack of meaning, what they're referring to is like us having a destiny or something like that. They're talking about like if we believe in the stars aligning just so this can happen or whatever like that. A lot of people, I would say maybe most people, believe in things like that, and it can give you comfort in a way. If you feel like, okay, well, whatever's meant to happen is going to happen. But I mean, if you think about it the other way, the universe is obviously is pretty much endless, is very vast. We are just a tiny speck within the universe, less than a speck. So I wouldn't say that the universe is particularly concerned with what we have going on. I think that's just a human thing and a really short-sighted idea. Um, so I don't think that the cosmos is concerned with what we have going on. That's the, I guess you could say, bad news. But the good news about that is that hey, the cynical one. I actually mentioned cynicism a little while ago. But the good part about that is that you can create your own destiny. Of course, we are still at the mercy of outside influences to some degree, but if you believe that you have the power to change your life and create your own destiny, then I think that's more empowering and liberating than feeling like your destiny has already been written or whatever is supposed to happen is going to happen. Okay, so okay. Other responses include a destructive attitude aiming to violently tear down political authorities and social institutions, attempts to undermine nihilism by identifying genuine sources of meaning, and a passive resignation or quiet acceptance. Okay. Okay. This is kind of what I was just talking about. Arguments for and against nihilism are discussed in the academic discourse. Arguments from a cosmological perspective assert that human existence is a minor and insignificant aspect of the universe as a whole, which is indifferent to human concerns and aspirations. I think this whole paragraph is interesting. It says a different line of argument asserts that there is no God and that there can be no objective foundation for values without a God. From this perspective, religion may be interpreted as a response to the fear of death, functioning as a futile attempt to find meaning in a meaningless universe. So, yeah, I think that's an interesting way to look at it. I think religion fulfills a lot of our innate needs as human beings, like a lot of our emotional needs as human beings. And I did get into that on another live, so I won't really get too much into that. But yeah, I think fear of death is definitely one of the things that that religion addresses. Hey, Candy Cane, thank you for stopping by. Drop me a like, Candy Cane. You're the best. But thank you for coming by. Okay. So Candy Cane, if you're still here, what I'm going to be doing is talking about nihilism, and then I'm going to be reviewing a movie. Well, I'm going to say, I guess, interpreting a movie, breaking down the movie called Annihilation, because it has a lot. It has a nihilistic theme. That's one of the themes of the movie, and I'm going to be talking about, like, I guess, how the movie addresses nihilism or how nihilism drives the plot of the movie. But you don't have to stay, but thank you for coming by. All right. So, all right. Another viewpoint highlights the pervasiveness of senseless suffering and violence while emphasizing the fleeting nature of happiness. Now, who has ever thought about that? That reminds me of the idea of antinatalism, because, okay, it's saying again, senseless suffering is pervasive, violence is pervasive, nature is fleeting. I'm sorry, happiness is fleeting. Said the wrong thing. Okay, the happiness is fleeting in nature. So I don't know if I I mean, I guess I can somewhat agree with that. Yeah, because nobody has a perfectly happy life, right? But everybody suffers a lot, before they leave this earth. They said it on Eve's Bayou. No one leaves this earth without feeling terrible pain, for the most part. So yeah, everybody's gonna suffer in life. Everybody's gonna experience loss in life or loneliness. But we're but and we may experience happiness, but not everybody is even going to experience true happiness. Like people that are just born in the wrong part of the world, for example, or the wrong social class or caste, wrong color, you know what I mean? So yeah. All right. A different Okay, wait, no. Some theorists link this view to human mortality, suggesting that the inevitability of death renders all human accomplishments transient and ultimately futile. So I definitely get what they're saying in regards to that. Because everything that we're looking at is gonna be gone someday. But at the same time, I think we were. I don't want to say we were chosen because I don't believe that. But I think that we are lucky, depending on how you want to look at it, whether it's good luck or bad luck, right? But we are lucky to be alive and to be able to experience the world and have an opportunity to do the things that we want to do. Because I mean, I have people that I enjoy being around. I have uh, hobbies that I love. Sometimes I enjoy my work. You know what I mean? Things like that. So I think that being alive does, at least you get to experience something before you're out of here. Okay, a different perspective from biology argues that life is driven by blind natural selection on a large scale and the satisfaction of innate needs on an individual scale, neither of which aims at a higher purpose. Uh, okay. Okay. So I'm not going to get into um, the other forms of nihilism. Let me see. This is interesting, but I'm not going to get into that. I don't think I'm going to get into that. All right. Cosmic nihilism. Cosmic or cosmological nihilism is the view that reality is unintelligible and lacks inherent meaning, closely related to epistemological and existential nihilism. It asserts that the world is blank, featureless, or chaotic, making it indifferent to human attempts to understand it. Cosmic nihilists often emphasize the vastness of the universe, arguing that it shows the insignificance of humans and their endeavors. So I would say, I mean, just based on that, I would say I am a cosmic nihilist. But I think a lot of these philosophical terms, they have a lot of overlap. So being a cosmic nihilist, I don't think it doesn't rule out all else, if that makes sense. Okay, so I think next what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to get started talking about the movie. So I went to see this movie when it came out in 2018, and I really enjoyed the movie because I like things that are kind of, original and different. Because I remember that weekend an Avengers movie was also coming out, and that made like way more money than Annihilation, and I was kind of annoyed just based on the fact that like um Candy, if you're still in here, I remember you talked about this a few weeks ago. You talked about just the recycling and reuse and repackaging of the same ideas, like sequel after remake after whatever. So and the reason why that happens is because that's what makes money. That's playing it safe. You never know. Like you can kind of bet on having an audience for something that is a sequel or a remake, but you don't know if the audience is going to take a chance on something new, especially if it's something that's considered like obscure or weird, or too thought provoking, because I think people kind of like simple things. They like happy endings, so it can be kind of hard. So all right, so I'm not good at this, but so I'm just gonna try my best. So I'm gonna just explain what Annihilation is about. Yeah, it's a good movie. There are going to be spoilers. There are going to be spoilers. So, but it's a sci-fi movie. I'm not sure if you're into sci-fi. It's weird sci-fi or weird fiction. Um, okay, so the movie is about there's a comet that hits the Earth, but it hits just basically this obscure part of the Earth, and something that they're calling a shimmer, it emerges from that area and starts growing bigger and bigger. Actually, let me see if I can. I did get some pictures. Um, so let me see. Okay, so that's, you see those like swirly colors and everything. That is the shimmer. So the shimmer is growing larger and larger, and when people have gone in to investigate what exactly is going on in the shimmer, nobody has returned. Nobody has come back. There can be no communication to anybody inside the shimmer. Nothing can leave the shimmer. So the problem is that the shimmer keeps growing and growing and growing. So eventually it's going to take over like towns, cities, states, countries, and the planet. So this is about a group of four women. They each have four different jobs. One is a paramedic, one is a biologist, the main character, one is a physicist, and one is a psychologist. And they all decide that it's worth it to go in and see what this is about. Let me see. I'm just trying to see what you're saying, Candy. The show from a little, that's the whole thing you meant to say, or it got cut off. Um, so yeah, I think I can stop there as far as like what the premise of the movie is. But I saw a lot of and this is the thing, when you're watching a movie, nobody can tell you, oh, okay, okay, I'm gonna check that out. But nobody can tell you. I mean, I guess the author, or whoever made the movie, can tell you what it's about. But at the same time, like, everybody's gonna read it and have a their own idea of what's going on. So I say that to say I didn't read anybody else's interpretation of this movie, so this is just my understanding of it. And I will say this is something that I noticed. I think a lot of times we watch things very passively, because I had watched this movie quite a few times, but today is when I got the transcript from the internet, and I watched the movie as I was going through the transcript, and I took notes, and I realized that I noticed so much more during today's watching of the movie, just based on me, like, taking notes, and knowing that I was gonna talk about it. The taking notes part really helped. So now, all right, so I guess I'll get started. So the movie begins with okay, so she has made it out the shimmer. I know I said nothing can make it out the shimmer, but she has made it out the shimmer. So at the beginning of the movie, she's being questioned by a scientist that's in he's in like a hazmat suit, because they don't know, like, if she is radioactive. They don't know if she's contagious. They don't know what's going on, so they can't just really be coming into contact with her because she came out of the shimmer. So one thing I noticed is he said that they had rations for 2 weeks, but they were inside for almost 4 months. So that lets me know that time passes more slow. I'm not sure how to say it, but it kind of reminds me of a black hole or the event horizon, because for a person that's going into a black hole, or somebody is getting closer to the event horizon, they're moving at normal speed. Or if that would have happened, if they were to still maintain consciousness, they would perceive themselves as moving at normal speed. But an observer, like, that's at normal, I guess what you would call normal gravity. Yes, yeah, I think that's a better way to say it. And I wasn't sure if I should say time move faster or time move slower. I don't know. But it would look like it would take a long time for the observer to see you go through for them to see you cross the event horizon. And as a matter of fact, you would just slow down to the point that you stopped. So that made me think, okay, well, I think the shimmer may, have some qualities in common with the event horizon. Yeah, so that made sense. So yeah, I think that could have been a nod to relativity or a black hole, because nothing escapes, and you will see in the end that I'm just gonna leave that. All right, so now the biologist, she is teaching a class about examining cancer cells in vitro, and she will be discussing autophagic activity. That's something that she brought up in class. So I think, I mean, it's easy to see I guess the relation between the shimmer and the idea of cancer. Um, Candy Cane, I know that this movie is based on a book. I did also read the book. They're not that similar. The book is not that similar to the movie, but yeah, the book was kind of but I'll get to that. so yeah, at the beginning of the movie, there is a reference to cancer cells and autophagic activity. As far as I know, autophagy. I don't know how you say it, but that's like cells eating. I think maybe cells eating each other or eating themselves. I'm gonna just look it up really quick. But I know it has to do with eating, I believe. So I think that, okay, it's the body's natural conserved cellular cleanup process that breaks down and recycles damaged components, misfolded proteins, and worn out organelles via lysosomes. This fundamental mechanism, which acts as a housekeeping survival pathway, is generally induced by stress such as nutrient deprivation or fasting to maintain cellular homeostasis. I'm gonna get back to that. But yeah, so I think at the very beginning of the movie, they're already introducing the idea of the shimmer being like a cancer, but I'm not exactly sure what a cancer and autophagy would have in common, because it's cancer destroys, and autophagy, it seems like it's just making it better, cleaning up or making it better. um it feels so quiet. Like, I don't know. I feel like I want to put on some music, but I don't know how to. I've been trying, and it's like I'm just too lazy to just sit there and watch a video and just go through the setup. It's just boring as hell. So it's just, I just struggle week after week. But I'm gonna get it. Okay, so yeah. Now her husband went into the shimmer about a year ago. The biologist's husband went into the shimmer about a year ago, and he didn't come back. So she thought that he was dead. So what happens is, at the beginning of the movie, he actually does come back. He just appears outside her bedroom door. But the thing is, he's not acting like himself. He's acting like he doesn't really remember that much, and he doesn't really understand that much. He's just like, okay, whatever. So she said, "I thought you were gone forever." That reminded me of like the concept of war. So I know that the author of this book, he has a lot to say about environmental conservation. So you could think of like the shimmer and nature and humans being at war. I don't know. All right, so now he immediately got sick as soon as he got back. He sat down, he couldn't really answer any questions. He drank some water, and then he got sick. So they said his body was pretty much breaking down. He had multiple organ failure. So what that reminded me of, Sheba, she's too pretty to be that mean. Okay, yeah. So now what I thought about is the fact that, like, humans, we evolved to live on the earth, right? So everything that is on the earth, depending on where it is on the earth, it has evolved to survive and thrive in that environment. So like humans, we can only live at a certain level of gravity. Say if we get too high in the mountains, it's harder to breathe and stuff, or get enough oxygen. And really in the deep sea, it's so much pressure that it can crush you, and we're not quote unquote designed for that. But there are things that can survive those conditions, and we call them extremophiles because let's just say it's something that can live in a really hot environment or a really cold environment or acidic or whatever the case may be. Humans consider them to be extremophiles, but when you think about it, extreme is relative, so I've heard of the idea of like, okay, Earth being in the habitable zone, or Earth being like, or in the Goldilocks zone, or that not many planets, or maybe very few planets um are appropriate for life to live or even form, or survive. So I don't know, but I mean, one thing we can definitely say is that there are a lot of different biomes and environments on Earth, and each animal is designed to deal with it. Like a camel can be in the desert because it has the hump, where it stores the extra water or whatever, and same with cactuses. You get what I'm saying. So that's one thing I immediately noticed, that he was sick as soon as he got back home. And I was thinking, okay, is that because he's not from Earth? So another thing that happened is, okay, so they had to sedate her because like the secret police or whoever they are, they came for him because they didn't know that he had come back. So once they found out that he came back, they basically went to his house and grabbed him and brought him to so they could observe him and isolate him and things like that. So they ended up sedating her, like giving her a shot in the neck. And so when she woke up from that, she started throwing up. And the doctor that she was talking to, she said, okay, well, you must feel horrible. That's a side effect or hangover from the sedative that we gave you. So when I thought about that, it reminded me of okay, so basically her regaining consciousness or awareness, it was a process that came with pain, so it's not like you can just go under and then come back and I guess not feel anything. Some people do get sick from it, because it's quote unquote a hangover. So I thought about that, like also in a metaphoric way, like the process of, I'm not going to say spiritual awakening, but just the process of like awakening being painful, being disorienting, things like that. It's not, it's not always a happy thing. For the most part, at first, it's definitely not a happy thing. And it's definitely a thing people want to resist, because when you think about a hangover or like basically coming down from a drug, people don't want to go through that. What is it called when you're detoxing? That is not a pretty process. So, if we think of like our illusions as a drug, it makes sense that it hurts to be separated from that. Okay, so her research, they talked about her area of research, and her area of research is the genetically programmed life cycle of a cell. Now, there are a few, yes, withdrawal, yes. I wanna try to put on some music, but I don't know if it, I tried it like in a recording with OBS. I'm not on OBS, but it didn't it didn't pick it up. It was like it what's the word? It was like it did noise canceling. So I don't know if it'll work, but just I guess let me know if it works. Let me see something. Tell me if you can hear this, Candy, if you're still in here. Can you hear anything? Hear any music? Background music? Okay, cool. Is it too loud? Or is it like really muffled and ugly? What does it sound like? Yes, Candy. Oh my gosh. Guess what I was gonna say? I was gonna say extra points if you can guess where this came from, girl. Like, oh my God. I didn't know you was like that. What? What you know about 007, girl? Girl. Okay, let me calm down. Okay, so let me turn it up a little bit more. Okay, so I'm gonna get back to it, but just tell me like if I need to turn it down or if it's blurry, or if I just need to take it off, turn it off. GoldenEye is still the shit. Okay, so Her research was about the genetically programmed life cycle of a cell. So that made me think of a few different things. Um, Now, okay, cells have a life cycle. So what does that mean? It has a beginning. The cells have a beginning. They have an end. They're not designed to live forever. That's not, how it's supposed to be. So death is a part of the life cycle of a cell. Um, and I'm gonna talk a little bit more. Oh, actually, no, no, no. Let me find it. Okay, so she said that they were going to be examining cancer cells, and she talked about HeLa cells. Um, HeLa cells. I'm not gonna go too deep into it. I'm pretty sure she didn't use the word HeLa, but I'm pretty sure she's talking about HeLa cells. It came from a 31-year-old Black woman who died from cervical cancer. Her cells are still living. They just never stop dividing. And they, use a lot of they do a lot of experiments and stuff and research based on HeLa cells. But of course, neither she or nobody in her family got anything for it. They just, they're just keeping her cancer cells alive to experiment on. So now I think what we can take from that is that normally cells will die, but obviously cancer is a situation where cells grow out of control, and they, live longer than they're supposed to live. They do things that they're not supposed to do. They're just like flouting the rules, if you could say. So all right, let me see where I am. Okay, so she said that she wanted to see a lawyer. She told the doctor, she's in custody right now. She told the doctor that she wants to see a lawyer, and the doctor said you're not going to be able to see a lawyer. So what I took from that is the situation that is occurring, or whatever has happened, it is outside the bounds of, law. It's outside the bounds of, like, just basic, law and statutes and things like that. It's kind of like when you think about martial law, it's kind of like when you're able to do things, you're able to violate people's constitutional rights and things like that, just based on, I guess, the situation. It reminded me of that. She doesn't have the same rights that she would have if this was just a typical situation. So there is no, I want to see a lawyer. It's like, no, you're here, you're going to answer these questions that we have for you. So when we talk more about the shimmer, you can kind of see how that relates to the shimmer, because what happens in the shimmer is not according to the laws of nature as we know them. So I thought that was an interesting parallel. Okay, so the doctor, she wonders if the shimmer is a religious event, a terrestrial event, a higher dimension. She said we have many theories but few facts. Now, I mean, I think that's fair. Religious, extraterrestrial, a higher dimension. So, like I said, I'm gonna repeat. At the beginning of the movie, there was a comet. So, I guess from that you can, I guess, glean that it's an extraterrestrial event, or at least that's how I took it. Yeah. But I think all these things, those are just the things that come to mind when we see things that are not making sense in our world. What, when we don't understand something, what do we say? We attribute it to God or a higher power, or the supernatural, extraterrestrial event. I think of the pyramids. How some people say that the pyramids were built by aliens because they don't know how they were able to make the pyramids, especially back then. So we say, okay, we aliens. Or they say, ancient aliens are the ones that just gave us civilization, blah, blah, blah. So when we don't know, we kind of throw a lot of different stuff out there, is what I'm saying. So as I said before, it's referred to as the shimmer, basically because of how it looks. But I think you could think of shimmer in, a couple different ways. It looks shimmery, but then also it's like blurry, when something shimmers, it's not really clear, so you can't really see what's going on. So it makes it kind of like obscure, and also makes it dreamlike. So I think shimmer is also uh a nod to that. And then shimmer is beautiful, right? Just when something is shimmering, it, is beautiful. But shimmering is not always good, because oil on water shimmers, right? But an oil spill is not good. So, you know um yeah. All right. So um she said, so the doctor said, so far the shimmer is eating into barely populated swampland. But that won't last much longer. In a few months, the area will have grown to where we are right now. And then we're talking cities, states, and so on. So that reminded me again of cancer, because it's uncontrolled growth, and they don't know what to do about it. So you'll see like why the shimmer is a problem in a little bit. But yeah, it's not just that the world is going to become shimmery. It's going to be, a lot that's going to change um as far as the shimmer, or when the shimmer takes over, the world. um all right. So um now she was in bed, and she was talking to her husband. I'm talking about the biologist, the main character. And she said that um she was talking about the Hayflick limit. So I'm not sure if it's worth really me looking that up right now, but I'm just gonna look it up real quick. Hayflick limit, because I don't want to describe it in the wrong way. Okay, the Hayflick limit is, wait, let me see. Okay, hold on. Add to stage, remove other media streams. Okay. Y'all know I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. Hayflick limit. The Hayflick limit, or Hayflick phenomenon, is the number of times a normal somatic differentiated human cell population will divide before cell division stops. So they're basically talking about like a limitation on the life cycle of a cell. And she said that if we were able to circumvent the Hayflick limit, that we could prevent senescence, which is aging. So theoretically, you would be able to live forever. It just like those cancer cells, those HeLa cells are doing, that she has in the lab. They're not going to die. Under normal circumstances, they can live forever. So she says that means the cell does not grow old. It becomes immortal. It keeps dividing, and it doesn't die. So what I thought about when it came to that was that wait, let me see. Hold on. My mind just went blank. The cell grows old, it doesn't die, it becomes immortal. Okay, so it keeps dividing. Okay, so since it's a cancer cell, it's changing, right, as it divides. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I'm pretty sure, like, the HeLa cells, I'm going to guess the HeLa cells are actually mutating at the same time. So that reminded me of the idea of existence in different forms. So like basically the same thing existing in different forms. Like you can have water, or ice, or whatever that stuff is, water vapor. Or if you think about it, right, there are like only a certain number of elements, at least on Earth, and then everything on the Earth is made out of those elements, but just in different forms. Just like we are made out of like the same thing that stars are made out of. It's not like we're made out of something completely different. It's just organized differently. But we know that once somebody dies, that they eventually will become one with the earth again, and those nutrients will feed like trees and whatever the case may be. So yeah, so I think maybe that's what they're getting at. So she says that they say aging is a natural process, but it's actually a fault in our genes. Aging is they say aging is a natural process, but it's actually a fault in our genes. So what? Hey, Zero, Thank you for coming by. Drop me a like, Zero. But what that made me think of is that, like, are we our own shimmer? Um, because uh I didn't really get into what the shimmer is yet or what happens in the shimmer, but we're gonna get into that. But um since our bodies break down and are transformed into radically different entities, is that similar to what happens in the shimmer? So are we just like the shimmer on a smaller scale? Because our existence is not permanent. Like, the form that we take right now is not permanent. People die, they decompose, and become part of a star. So let's see. Okay, so the scientists that went into the shimmer, let me put this back on the stage. The scientists that went into the shimmer, the main character, she is a biologist. There's also a geomorphologist, and so I looked that up, and they study the environment, which is like, the um pretty much everything in the environment, including biology, but also like, which would be called the biosphere. They also study like the land masses, the atmosphere, things like that. So pretty much like the environment. So there's also a physicist that's going into the shimmer with them. So what do physicists study? Now this is me in lay terms, right? Because so correct me if I'm wrong or saying it, in a way that doesn't make sense. But physicists study interactions and transformation of like matter, right? Beings and the environment. So, yeah. But then, the biologist, what does she study? She studies like the body. She studies life. So now, what that made me think of was, okay, so if a geomorphologist studies the environment and a biologist studies life, now, you know how I just said a little while ago that humans were once part of stars and will once again be part of stars or planets or stardust. So when you think about it, okay, in a way, they're kind of studying the same thing, you know, just in different forms. So if you study the environment and life in physics, so we change into different matter because of physics. So it's like the physicist, she is maybe sitting at the corner of both of those two, at the intersection of both of those two, because she's able to explain, or she studies like how life interacts with the environment. Maybe not in those terms, but what I'm saying is she studies like change and transformations and things like that. So like I said, that's what changed us from stardust to what we are right now, as humans. So I felt like the physicist is kind of where biology and geomorphology intersect. And then, so like I said, there's a psychologist. So I figured if a geomorphologist, a physicist, and a biologist, they are all studying physical science. I believe that's all considered physical science. But then the psychologist, she's studying, I don't know if that would be a social science. Correct me if I'm wrong. But that made me think, okay, so the other scientists who are studying physical science, they are studying what is, like, just the way the world is, but then the psychologist, of course, she's also studying how people are, and but isn't she also helping people cope with what life is, or what is, you see what I mean? Hopefully I'm making sense. I feel like that didn't make sense. But yeah, so 3 of the scientists are studying what is, just the cards we were dealt. And then the 4th scientist, she helps people accept the cards that we are dealt. She helps us cope with the cards that we are dealt, if that makes sense. So okay, so okay. Now this is something me and out the blue talked about a little while ago, but just the fact that like we can't be sure of anything except our existence, and because we know that we perceive and we know that we can ponder whether or not we exist, but other than that, we don't know like if anything around us actually exists, because um it could all, let's just say for example, it could all be simulated. Like let's just say if we were a brain in a vat, and we were receiving electrical stimulus to make us feel like we're experiencing everything that we're experiencing, but we're not actually experiencing it. So because the brain would not be able to tell the difference. So um in a way, we refract, quote unquote refract, when we perceive reality, because we're not seeing what's actually there. We're taking what's there, and then our brain um our brain forms it into something that we can understand, and then that's what we see, if that makes sense. So um I think that on a smaller scale, humans are like the shimmer, because you know we take what's actually there and we turn it into something else. So hopefully that makes sense. um Ventress, the people who are going in, she has to basically give them I guess checks to make sure that they're good to go in, that they're in the right frame of mind and stuff like that. So she decides that she's gonna go in on this trip. So she says, I watch it grow closer. There's only so long one can do that. And so she was asked, do you need to know what's inside? And so she said yes. So this reminded me of Hi Vagoda. This reminded me of Pandora's box, or the tree of knowledge of good and evil, because, and I talked about this maybe a few shows ago. I'm calling them a show, but curiosity. You know how they say curiosity killed the cat. You know, could you want to know something so bad that you would risk your survival? That you would risk being destroyed, because that's what Ventress is saying. She's saying that there's only so long she can watch it grow closer. She needs to know what's inside. She knows that nothing that goes in there comes back, but I guess she's saying that you know it's worth my existence for me to find out like what is actually going on with this. So yeah, knowledge at the risk or cost of self-destruction. That reminded me of Pandora's box, because um when Pandora's box, once you open it, it lets you get to see what's inside, but at the same time, it lets out all the sorrows and pain and stuff into the world, and you can't put it back in the box. But now you know what I mean? Or just like the tree of knowledge of good and evil, you eat the apple and it destroys your life, it destroys your existence, you get kicked out of the garden, but what did you learn? You learn a lot. You learn a lot. Vagoda, yes, I did watch some of it. I did. Yeah. Okay, so okay. Um One thing that was noted is that there can be no communication um within from within the shimmer to outside the shimmer. So the shimmer, it kind of acts like a wall, and it's blocking the signals, or from what they can tell, it's blocking the signals, because they can't receive any radio communication, um uh anything like satellite, whatever. Vagoda. Now that's not what I'm talking about right now. So yeah, so basically there's like a wall, there's a communication wall. Um because there's no reaching. Okay, all right. See you later, Vagoda. All right. So like I was saying, there's no seeing past the shimmer. There's no communicating past the shimmer. There's no knowing what's going on inside the shimmer without you being in the shimmer. So that also reminded me of the idea of a black hole. Because as I said before, well, no, I didn't say that before, but no information can be transmitted out of the black hole. So nothing had left the shimmer, and then no information can leave the shimmer. So in that way, when you think about it, it is like a black hole because nothing can leave the black hole, like light, information, nothing. Once it's there, it's there, and the only way you're gonna know what's going on inside is for you to be inside. So in that tells me that the shimmer is like the black hole in two ways. One, because um it does not let out any information, and the other way is because time passes more slowly in the shimmer than it does in the real world, and so that's also like a black hole. Let me see if I can put another put some more music on because it just sounds weird. um okay, tell me if that's too loud. Whoever's in here. Actually, let me turn that down a little bit. I'm gonna turn it back up later, but all right. um okay, so they came upon some while they were in the shimmer, they came upon some flowers, and the flowers, they all look different, but they were all coming from the same vine. And I'm going to show you what I am talking about. Let me see. Okay, wait. I'm just getting another picture ready. I'm not this good at this, so y'all give me a second. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. So there was one plant, and it was like climbing up a trellis or something like that, or along some fences. And even though they all came from the same like stem and root or whatever, the flowers looked completely different. There were flowers that had different shapes, different colors, but it was still beautiful. And they commented that they're beautiful, but there's a problem because that's not how organisms are supposed to work. Basically, if I have a human leg, I'm also supposed to have a human arm, right? And a human head and human toes, or whatever the case may be. It's not like I'm supposed to have like you know and I'm going to use other primates just as an example, just because we're using flowers are related and primates are related. So I'm not supposed to have like a human head, then a arm like a chimp, and a leg like a orangutan, for example. Um so um the biologist, she said that these flowers are very strange because they're all so different, and to look at them you wouldn't say that they're the same species, but they're growing from the same branch structure, so it has to be the same species. It's the same plant. So she said it's like they're stuck in a continuous mutation. So someone asked, is that a pathology? So a pathology is when something is wrong. Like a pathology, yeah. Pathology is like when something is not the way it's supposed to be. So like, you know, pathological liar. You're lying to the point where you actually it should be clinically recognized. So yes, basically saying something wrong is wrong. So yeah. So somebody asked, is it a pathology? And she said, well, you would call it a pathology if you saw this in a human. Which is a great point, because we're looking at flowers and just seeing a bunch of different flowers together, and it's beautiful to us. But when you take that idea and you apply it to other organisms, then you will see that it's really not a good, at least from what our perspective is, we wouldn't consider it to be a good thing. So yeah, she said it seems like they're stuck in a continuous mutation. So that is one thing that's going on inside the shimmer. Continuous mutation. So all right. They were attacked, or one of the ladies was attacked by it looks like a gator. On the outside it just looks like a gator, but it has properties of other animals. So inside the gator's mouth were concentric rows of teeth. And concentric means like one row inside another, inside another, inside another. So if you know anything about like those worms that don't have a jaw, um it's kind of like that. Or well, I guess that's not the best example. Okay, so the example they used in the movie was sharks. It had teeth like a shark, but an alligator is not supposed to have teeth like a shark. So that's a problem. But somebody did ask, okay, could it be a crossbreed? And so the biologist, correctly told them that you can't have a cross, like you can't crossbreed different species. Yeah, there's a difference between a breed. There's a difference between breeds and species, and yeah, there's no way that an alligator could mate with a shark and produce kids. It just, no, they're way too different from each other. Um, okay, so um, she described what she saw in the shimmer as corruptions of form, duplicates of form, and echoes. So corruption, I mean, that sounds bad, but what does that mean? Change, right? Something not the way that it's quote unquote supposed to be. So what she did not say that she noticed was destruction. She said she saw corruptions of form, duplicates of form, echoes, but not destruction. So what does that mean? Like, that means that whatever's going on in the shimmer, it can be transformed into a different like form of existence. So it started out as one thing, it turned into something else, but it's not being destroyed. It's just being made different than, what it initially was meant to be, or quote unquote meant to be. So the scientist that's in the biohazard suit, when she's getting um what's the word, interrogated, he he asked her, what was it, nightmarish, because she said it was dreamlike. He said nightmarish, so she said not always, sometimes it was beautiful. So I think that makes sense. That makes sense. So there's another part of the movie where there's like a deer or a gazelle, and for its antlers it had like branches and flowers. So that was also beautiful. But why? Because a deer is something that's already like, passive. It's mild mannered, and then flowers are pretty. So I mean, that's a pretty idea. Like, imagine Bambi with like flowers for antlers. That's cute. But I mean, what about when it doesn't go so well, you know so, but yeah, like she said, it's not always nightmarish. Sometimes it's beautiful. So she was talking to another lady on the boat. um she talked about they talked about basically like everything else, other things they had done earlier in life. And so the lady said all other lives feel like a lifetime ago. That made me think, okay, is that like an allusion to rebirth? Because when you think about it, yeah, of course, everything that happened in your life led up to where you are now, but you can be a completely different person as far as like your beliefs, your behavior, your values, your morals, and things like that. People change over time. So if something feels like a lifetime ago, you could be like, well, hey, I did that, but I would never do that today. So what does that mean? It's kind of, to me, it's an allusion to rebirth. Allusion is an ALLUSION. So allusion meaning like reference to rebirth. And so keep in mind, she went into the shimmer. She volunteered to go into the shimmer after her husband got back home. So somebody asked what happened to her husband. She said KIA. She said he was killed in action. But the thing is, he wasn't dead. He wasn't dead yet. He came back and he was completely different. But rather than explain any of that or all of that, she just said he was killed in action. So that made me think, okay, well, is the him that existed before he went into the shimmer, is that him? Is that version of him gone? Um Did he actually come out of the shimmer? We'll see later. Okay, so and the lady that the biologist was talking to, she lost a daughter to cancer. She lost a daughter to leukemia, which is cancer. So I think that they're giving us like another nod to cancer, just like as a theme. um in its destructive qualities, but also in its mutating qualities. So you could think of the shimmer kind of like that, or that's one way to think of the shimmer. So the woman who lost her daughter, she said, in a way, it's two bereavements: my beautiful girl and the person I once was. And that made me think of um a point of change, just like a mutation or just like refraction. Like I said, with refraction, there's something in front of you, but your mind changes it into what you actually see. But in that same way, she was changed, right? She was refracted, because she started out one way and then she ended up being another way as a result of the loss of her daughter, which is understandable. So, um, all right, then. Okay, so yeah, they saw all kinds of mutations. So they saw like different kinds of mold or moss growing together, just anything that you could think of. And so she noted that it was malignant, like tumors. So, which is another reference to cancer. Um, Now, when they got into the old um the old building, was it like what was it called? Hmm, I guess it doesn't matter. But it was like the base of operations. Okay, or whatever. It was where the that government agency was initially located before the shimmer took over it. So they had to move where they were, farther out, so that they wouldn't be overtaken by the shimmer. So now on the table they found a video, and it says, for those that follow. So, you know, it didn't just say watch me, it said for those that follow. And but that made me think of like continuation and rebirth, um because they knew that somebody was going to be coming, because they're sending in wave after wave after wave of you know of teams to see what's going on. So they already knew that, hey, well, we're not going to make it out, or we most likely are not going to make it out, but somebody is going to come behind us. So that made me think of themes of continuation and rebirth, and the fact that something is always going to exist. Like there's no way that nothing could exist, especially since there already is something. Like, what could happen that would make everything disappear, because matter isn't created or destroyed. So that also made me think of the Big Bang and the Big Crunch. um and I don't know if you're familiar with the Big Bang and the Big Crunch, but yeah, the Big Bang, I think everybody's familiar with that. But the Big Crunch is like, let's just say, the earth every I say the earth everything in the universe is getting farther and farther apart, because it came from one central point. That is the idea of the Big Bang. But once it loses its momentum, and it's not being projected outward anymore, then it's not going to just stay still. That means gravity is going to overtake all the matter in the universe. At least according to the Big Crunch theory, gravity would overtake all the matter in the universe, and everything would be condensed into that tiny point again, just like it was before the Big Bang. So one theory is that the universe is just constantly shifting between the Big Bang and the Big Crunch, the Big Bang and the Big Crunch, obviously over like, billions and billions of years. So, okay, so all right. At one point, okay, so they watched the video. They did watch the video that was left behind by the team before them. And the team that came before them, they had realized that something weird was going on. So they cut open one guy, and that sounds terrible, but he, was apparently okay with being cut open, but because they needed to know what was inside of him. But they cut open his abdomen, and there was like some kind of eel like or snake like creature inside of him, just like whirling and swirling around in his stomach, right? So um of course I don't know exactly what that was about, but it reminded me of when you think about it, um humans are mammals, right? And but a snake is, a reptile. If it was a snake, or if it was an eel, then I don't know if that would be considered like a fish, whatever. But two completely different life forms, but they're now part of the same life form. So I didn't think of it as him being infected or infested by something, but him just mutating so that um even though he was still one organism, he had qualities of completely different types of organisms. If that makes sense. Okay, so uh yeah. So basically whatever it was that was inside him is not at all like a human, but it's still part of him. And that kind of makes me think of what is it called? Teratoma. That's a kind of a teratoma is a kind of tumor. It's actually a non-cancerous tumor, but it it can grow like hair, it can grow teeth, it can it can grow, I think, fingernails and stuff like that. But the point I'm making about talking about a teratoma is it's made from, like, I don't want to say stem cells, but it's made from like the same cells that eventually become different parts of your body. And I'm only saying that to say that the point I'm making is that your body really is only supposed to be able to create what it's able to create. Like it makes sense that your body could create a teratoma based on like what we know teratomas to be, but it wouldn't make sense for your body to produce like fangs or well, okay, when I say a teratoma that may contain like human teeth, human nails, human hair, human eyes, something like that. But it wouldn't make sense for your body to produce a teratoma that had fangs or that had claws, if that makes sense. So yeah, or whiskers or whatever. I don't know. So all right. Um, somebody has said while they were inside the old base, somebody said, "I don't want to stay here tonight." And then the psychologist who was in charge, she said, "We don't have a choice." She said it's too late in the day for us to move on. So, what that reminded me of, what that made me think of is just the daily cycle, right? It's too late in the day for us to move on. So what does that mean? Tomorrow is going to be another day. The next time around, it's another chance. So tomorrow, we know tomorrow is going to be similar, but it's not going to be the same because every day is different, right? But in a way, every day is the same. So, she's saying basically we'll catch it the next time around. So that also made me think of cycles like death and rebirth, or transformation, or the Big Bang and the Big Crunch. All right, so let's see. Okay, it was one night she was looking at some cells under her microscope. And so another lady asked her, "Is the mystery unraveling?" Or but she responded, "Something's unraveling." So I think what she's saying, so basically what the woman was asking is, are we getting any closer to figuring this out? So that's why she said, is the mystery unraveling? So the biologist's response, she says something is unraveling. So what she meant was, hey, like the mystery might not be unraveling, but she's basically hinting that, hey, her mind might be unraveling. That's pretty much what she's getting at, because she needs the answer to this question. But if you can't figure out the answer to a question, sometimes it can drive you crazy. So take a sip. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-hmm. All right. Mm-hmm. Um. So, another interesting thing I thought they talked about was self-destruction. because the biologist, she asked why did her husband volunteer for a SUI mission. That's what she said. I don't know. I mean, I don't have a problem with saying the word, but hey. So the psychologist said, okay, it wasn't technically it wasn't SUI, it's self-destruction. She said most people don't commit SUI, but nearly everybody self-destructs. And so she just listed some ways in which people self-destruct, like by drinking and smoking, or by destabilizing a good job or happy marriage. And she says that these are not decisions, they're impulses. So I mean, if something's not a decision, it's an impulse, or just the fact that something's not a decision, but yet you're still doing it. What does that mean? I mean, if you're not choosing to do it, if you're not uh making a strategic decision, because nobody plans, well, most people don't plan on destroying their marriage like without reason. We don't plan on sabotaging our own job, but these are things that happen. So if they are not decisions, then yeah, they would have to be impulses. But what would cause those impulses? Those impulses would be caused by our nature. So the psychologist said, you're better equipped to explain this than I am because you're a biologist. Isn't self-destruction coded into us, programmed into each cell? Um, so I thought about that. I was like, well, okay, if you think about it, right? You can think about just the smallest living thing or component of a living thing, that I guess, well, I'm not going to say it's the smallest thing, but let's just say a cell. If a cell has a life cycle, but it's programmed to self-destruct after a certain amount of time, and that's what it's supposed to do. Um, just like, okay, our organs are only going to work for a certain amount of time, and ideally they're going to work until we're dead, but sometimes people's organs give out sooner. So basically a person is only programmed to live for so long, due to just the natural limit of the human lifespan, or whatever the reason is for that, because I looked into that, but I don't recall what the reason was. But yeah, so if a cell is programmed to self-destruct, if our organs can only function so long before they give out, if humans have a drive, or if we have the impulse to self-destruct, okay, but also the sun is going to quote unquote self-destruct. The sun isn't going to be a sun forever, just like you know the planets in the galaxy. I don't know if at some point they're going to coalesce, I don't know, but or if you think about the big crunch, or even think about like Milky Way and Andromeda, they're not always going to be separate, they're moving towards each other. So if you think about the big crunch, that is everything in the universe coming together and being destroyed, because it's going to be pressed into that tiny infinitesimal point. So I mean, it's not destroying the matter, because the matter is still there, but it's just at a single point that's infinitely dense. But it is definitely changing the form of the matter. Yeah, so it's not destroying it in the sense that it's just unrecoverable. I mean, I think the information about what the universe was like before the big crunch is going to be unrecoverable, like there's no way to recover that information, but at the same time the matter is still there. So once, assuming that the point is there's going to be another big bang, that matter will reform into other bodies of I guess planets and rocks and stars and stuff like that. So that made me think of like when you think about not decisions to destabilize your life or self-destruct, but impulses, does that mean that we have a programmed need for change? Because self-destruction isn't actually self-destruction, right? Even if you ruin your life, you're still alive, right? Or even if you die, your matter is still going to be dispersed and used as energy by other living things. So it's really, self-destruction is really a transformation of form. Um, so in that way, I would say humans are also like the shimmer. So that made me think: is an organism considered to be a cell of the universe? If that makes sense, because the cells keep our bodies in balance. They know what to do to keep our bodies in balance. Um, so our organisms and other objects and energy and forces, okay, we know that those things keep the universe in balance. So does that mean that we could be considered to be a cell in the grand scheme of the universe? And that made me think: that does that mean we have to self-destruct? Because we can't defy the universe, you know. Or you could think of it like this: our cells, okay, our cells can defy our bodies. Like when it comes to something like cancer, I've heard the human race actually be compared to cancer, because I don't know if I want to get into all that, but when you think about it, it's not like we look around at different planets and see life on all these different planets. It only happens very rarely from what we can see. But I mean, that could be a lot once you consider how big the universe is, but we don't know because we never come across another civilization such as this one. So why is advanced civilization so rare? Why? Is it that humanity is something that has grown out of control? Were we only supposed to be like cells and fungi and things like that? Were we not supposed to actually get to where we are right now and being and building machines and leaving the earth, and you know what I mean, being able to change the atmosphere of the earth and things like that? In a way, you could think of humans as cancer, because the development of an advanced civilization is not something that happens all the time. It's something that happens only in certain conditions. And are we good for the universe? Are we good for the environment? No, we are doing damage to the planet. So, like I said, in that way, you can think of humans as a cancer. Um, and then another thing, I mean, let's just say we are considered to be cells, right? Cells divide and grow, but that's not, we aren't exactly cells, because that's not how we procreate. We actually come together and create a new being. Whereas, you know, like I said, cells, they divide and then they become, each division, each half becomes bigger. So um okay, so there's a part where one of the girls wants to go home, the paramedic, and she wants to go back the way that they came. But Lena, who is the biologist, she makes the point that um we're 2 days, she said they're 2 days away from the coast, but they're six, it's been 6 days since they came into the shimmer. So it would make more sense to just keep going and then you know, get out that way. Like they would eventually run into the wall or something like that. And so the girl responded and she said, are you saying we get out by going deeper? So what that made me think of is taking different routes but still ending up at the same destination. Yeah. Okay, so at one point we learned that Ventress has cancer, so that's um another reference to cancer. And so I guess what we're supposed to assume is that since Ventress had cancer, Ventress is the psychologist, but since she had cancer, that's why she's not really, you know, afraid to go into the shimmer, because if she's going to die either way, then she might as well die with, you know, the knowledge of what is actually going on. All right. And I mentioned earlier there's a deer with antlers that were made out of flowers and branches. And what that reminded me of was peace in the midst of turmoil. Um, because when you think about it, yeah, the shimmer is weird because I mean, we're seeing a lot of things we don't expect to see, because animals are not supposed to be combining with plants, but the result was still beautiful. And it made me think of like, that's kind of like how life is on the outside of the shimmer, because there are some beautiful things, there are some horrible things. It's not all one or the other. So, you know, they look at the shimmer like it's, you know, such a terrible or scary place, but I mean, in a way, it's kind of just like our world. So all right, there comes a point where they come to like an open grove. I'm gonna share the picture, but um they come to like an area where they see like bushes, but they're shaped like humans. I'm gonna share my screen. I'm not really putting up as much pictures as I thought I would, but you find it. Okay. Okay, so you can kind of see it right there. They look like people. Yeah, but they're, plants or collections of plants, but they look like people. So they looked up, they investigated it, and somebody said they've grown this way. I think the biologist said they've grown this way, and so somebody else said that's impossible. But I mean, that's what it was. They can tell that they weren't cut to be shaped like humans, and obviously who would have done that? Nobody. But they are plants that are growing in the form of human beings. So one person observed that, like, in order for this to happen, the plants would have to have Hox genes, and Hox genes, they basically they determine like the body plan for human beings. So why would a plant have Hox genes? So that's how they came to the realization that the shimmer is actually refracting everything. The shimmer is refracting reality. Okay, because at the beginning of the when they first got into the shimmer, they thought that the radio waves were blocked, and that light waves were blocked, but that's not true. They're actually being refracted. And I'm gonna just look up refraction really quick, just so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. Okay, if I can, just want to see the picture. Really? Okay, let me see something. Okay, I don't know. It's just annoying. Okay, well, wait. Okay, I'm gonna share my other screen. I'm new at this, y'all. I keep saying I'm new at this, but I'm only gonna be able to use that excuse for so long. So, okay. So this is an example of something being refracted. So you see that it comes in as one single beam of light, and then it becomes different. Like the light gets separated into the different colors. So that's actually what happens with the rainbow, because I guess the rain or whatever, I don't know what it is, but the light, instead of it just hitting the earth directly, it gets refracted. So that's what a rainbow is. And it happens after the rain. So I'm guessing it has something to do with the rain. The rain is what's refracting it or whatever. And this is also why they say like white light is a combination of all the other colors of light. So yeah, that's basically refraction. So as I was saying, the reason why the physicists figured out that the reason why they couldn't communicate via radio, and light waves couldn't leave or enter the shimmer, was not because they were being blocked. So the shimmer was not acting as a wall. The shimmer was acting as like kind of like a blender. It was refracting. It's refracting everything. So she says the signals aren't gone, they're scrambled. So she says the shimmer is a prism. So that's actually what I just showed. That's what those are, prisms. She said the shimmer is a prism, but it refracts everything, not just light and radio waves. It refracts animal DNA, plant DNA, all DNA. I mean, when you think about that, okay, because our cells are always, dividing and dying, and new cells are being created. It's not like we have the same exact cells that we had when we were born. It's like, so because of that, that's a lot of different opportunities for mutation. So if we have, like, let's just say if you're in the shimmer, and just due to the fact that our cells are always growing and dividing and dying, that kind of, if we are being if our DNA is being refracted while that's going on, that would result in like changes. It would result in the changes that they see in the shimmer, which is, for example, let me show some more of the mutations. Okay, so this is one of them. So this is the little gazelle or deer or whatever it is. And as you see, its antlers are branches and they have flowers on them. So, I mean, that's pretty to look at, but I mean, it's not, it's still not supposed to be happening. Let's see. How do I have to find a better way to do this. Let's see. Okay, here's another one. So I guess this is like moss or something. I'm not sure, but you can see that it's all different kinds together. It's not like it's one kind. It's like I don't know if it's fungus or whatever, but fungus is still considered like, I think, one organism, even though it's like I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but what I'm saying is, if you were just looking at a certain type of fungus, it wouldn't be all these different colors. These are different species that are being combined together, or it's changing into different species like as it grows. So, and that's a result of the refraction. So like I said, they realized that animal DNA and plant DNA are all being refracted, and that means that their DNA is also being refracted because they are inside the shimmer. I mean, I guess that was to be expected. So one girl starts freaking out because when she looks at her hands, she says, when I look at my hands and my fingerprints, I can see them moving. So what that made me think of is, if okay, your fingerprints are like, they're your identity, right? Because everybody's fingerprints are different. Nobody's fingerprints are exactly the same, or theoretically. So for your fingerprints to be changing, for your fingerprints to be moving, what does that mean? It kind of means you're losing your identity, or your identity is changing, your identity is breaking down. And that's scary because, I mean, we don't want to wonder if we're really real. We don't want to wonder if tomorrow we're gonna be something else, or or like, let's just say if you I don't want to say get dementia, but let's just say something else takes over your body, like you could still, your body could still be there, but somebody else is controlling it. You see what I mean? So that's what I think the fingerprints warping and moving represented. It just represented like their identity not being stable. So yeah, I think it represents the shifting of the identity. So there was a point in the movie where one of the women was attacked by a bear, quote unquote bear, and I say quote unquote because the bear was also like mutated, so it didn't look like a regular bear. It had qualities of other animals as well. So let's see. Okay. Okay, so the lady who got attacked and killed by the bear, she was screaming as she died. So what happened is the bear came back later, and the bear was outside and it was screaming just like the woman did. And it was saying, help me, help me. It didn't say it like that, but it was like screaming like, help me. So they thought it was her, which didn't make sense because, they had already, the biologist had already confirmed that she did not survive the bear attack. So one of the women rushed to open the door, and she found out that it was actually the bear using the other woman's voice. So as she died, it's like her for some reason her voice kind of like implanted onto the bear. And so when the bear spoke, or not spoke, but when the bear made a sound, the sound was um Cass screaming for help, if that makes sense. Um so um one thing I thought about that was that the bear didn't I don't think the bear did it on purpose. I mean, I don't think the bear did that to fool them into opening the door, because I mean, I don't know, but if that's just what happened, if the bear having Cass's voice was a refraction, then that means that the bear is really just mimicking her. It's not intentionally deceiving them. So um and what that made me think of is the fact that mutations can be good or bad, right? Because mutations are the reason why we have all the different species that we have today. But then again, not all mutations are good. Some mutations are bad and you don't survive them, or you are disabled, or cancer develops as a result of some mutations. But I think that what they were trying to illustrate at that point is that um you can have negative results, but not by design. It just sometimes it just turns out that way. So yeah, I don't think the bear was intentionally deceiving them. The bear wasn't trying to trick them. It was just the way it happened. The bear was mimicking Cass. So the next day, or like very early that morning, Ventress is the psychologist. She decides, okay, it's time to leave. She said, we are disintegrating, our bodies as fast as our minds. And she said, it's like the onset of dementia. If I don't reach the lighthouse soon, the person that started this journey won't be the person that ends it. So you know what? Now that I think about it, it reminds me of another book that I read before a long time ago. I have to remember. I know it was by Dean Koontz, but there was a guy. I think he drunk some kind of potion or something like that. But he started turning back, and he started like morphing into like one of our very early ancestors. The so anyway, his mind started to become more primitive, but he got stronger and everything like that, but he was not thinking clearly. So when you think about it, if they are being refracted, if their DNA is being refracted and they're having physical changes, then it means they could also be having mental changes. Hey Lena, thank you for coming by as always. Can you drop me a like, Lena? You're the best. Thank you for coming by. I'm talking about nihilism. I talked about nihilism a little bit, and now I'm going over the movie Annihilation. Have you ever seen the movie Annihilation? Yeah. So I guess I'm close to the end of that, and then afterwards, after I finish going over the movie and the symbolism in the movie, I'm gonna like read something from ChatGPT that explains like kind of how nihilism fits into the movie, or how the movie basically like how the movie explores the nihilistic themes. So yeah, I did think that the movie was nihilistic, and then I also realized that, hey, annihilation and nihilism, those they have the same root word, and the root word is nothing. So yeah, I thought that was interesting, so I figured I should combine both of these topics. So but thank you for coming by, girl. I can always count on you. So all right, so yeah, like I was saying, um they by them being in the shimmer, their minds could actually be becoming more animalistic. What if their minds became more like a reptile or more like an insect? That so it makes sense that they're kind of losing their minds while they're in there, because any changes that they're going to have, they're not going to just be physical. So uh the biologist said, I checked my blood last night, it's in me. And so the physicist said it would be in all of us. She said, "It was so strange hearing Shepard's voice in the mouth of that creature last night. I think as she was dying, part of her mind became part of the creature that was killing her. Imagine dying frightened and in pain and having that is the only part of you which survives." So yeah. Now, I mean, I don't know if that's true, if that's the only part of her that survived. Maybe so, maybe so. But I mean, what I'm getting from the whole Shimmer thing, it's a movie. It's a movie, Lena. It came out in 2018. It has stars Natalie Portman and also the lady from you probably don't remember this, but the lady from Single White Female. Hold on, yeah. But yeah, so she thought of it. She was like, okay, well, if I'm gonna go, why would I want to go like that and have that be the part of me that survives? Which I think that was just, I don't know if that was the only part of her that survived, but who knows? But that's how she felt about it. So what happened was she kind of gave up her will to live, and she walked into the field. She walked into the. Let me show you the picture that I had up earlier, and show you where she went. Okay. Where is it? Okay. Okay. I went over this a little bit earlier, but this is where she went. She kind of walked into this field, and then when the biologist, the main character, followed her into the field, she wasn't there anymore. So because as she was walking away, her arm started like sprouting flowers and stuff in vines. So what we're supposed to assume happened, I guess, since she gave up her will to live, she became one of these things. She became one of these, plant people. So now that's how she's going to be experiencing her life or her existence, not as a human, but in whatever way that plants experience reality. So they played a song in the movie. I wasn't really paying attention to too much of the music, but I noticed that one of the lyrics was, "The future has its costs." And I wrote that down because I thought that, that went along with the theme, because in order to get something new, a lot of times you have to do away with the old, right? You have, you're funny, Lena, but like, you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? So like, you know, if no matter is created or destroyed, that means to create something new, it has to come from somewhere. So that makes sense. So the future has its costs. That makes sense. So now, the next thing that happened, the main character, her name is Lena. Lena. Her name is Lena, but she's all alone. Because Ventress went to the lighthouse. The psychologist went to the lighthouse. Two of the girls died. One of them died. She was attacked by a bear. Well, actually, two of them died because they were attacked by a bear. And then, another girl, she kind of gave up her will to live and then became a plant. So she's like crying and stuff, the main character, and she finally makes it to the lighthouse. And when she gets to the lighthouse, there's a camera up. It's like a camcorder, and she starts watching. And also, like, in front of the camcorder, there's a body, but the body is like, it's kind of like how, like, I don't know if y'all know what Mount Vesuvius is, where they just turned into like ash, or their bodies just turned into like charcoal or whatever, but they just kind of got just turned into ash. I don't know what's the best way to say it, but the body was like that. It was just like whatever is left over after something burns completely. So she started watching the video, and she saw her husband sitting there in that same place. And what he said was, he said, "I thought I was a man. I had a life. People called me Cain. And now I'm not so sure. If I wasn't Cain, what was I? Was I you? Were you me?" He said, "My flesh moves like liquid, and my mind it's just cut loose. I can't bear it." So that goes back into like the whole fear of like being detached from one's identity, not being sure of one's identity, losing one's identity, or becoming something that you don't recognize. But it also made me think of shared identity. and transformation of identity and duplication of identity. Okay, so let me explain. He said he thought he was a man, he thought he had a life, but if he wasn't Cain, he said, was I you, were you me? So I mean, to me, it's like he's saying that there isn't that big of a difference, like like we're all part of that same substance that makes up everything in the universe. And so transformation of identity, yeah. So once he dies, he's no longer a conscious being, in the same way that he recalled being, in the same way that he was conscious, but he's still going to be turned into something else. The matter that makes up his body is not being destroyed. So, and then duplication of identity. I'm going to get to that in a second. But so what he did was, with the camera, on him, he lit a phosphorus grenade, and he it went off. It didn't blow him up. It just created this huge white flame, and his body just was, turned into like charcoal. It was turned into like dust, but still in the shape of his body. But you could see the blast marks and stuff on the wall. So she watched this happen. She saw her husband basically kill himself with a phosphorus grenade, and she didn't understand, because keep in mind, her husband had already come home, but when he came home, he wasn't acting like himself. So she's still watching the video, she's still watching the camcorder, and then after the husband basically goes up in flames, her husband comes from behind the camera and looks at the camera, and she's like, what the fuck? Because before her husband set off the bomb or grenade, he said, if you ever get out of here, can you go find Lena? So then she was like, what the fuck? Because that means that whoever came home wasn't actually her husband, because her husband died already. So what was this thing that came home? So okay, so yeah. So she goes further down into the hole that was left by the meteor or comet or whatever the case may be, and she finds Ventress. Ventress is the psychologist. Ventress, when you see her again, she doesn't have eyes. It's like there's just skin covering where her eyes should be, but she still has a mouth. She still has a nose. So, you could tell. I think she was still seeing, you know what I mean? Maybe she was seeing with her mind's eye. I don't know, but she was like looking up and around, and she was talking. She said, it's the last phase, vanished into havoc, unfathomable mind, and now beacon, now see. So I think when she said vanished into havoc, okay, so it's not actually vanishing. She's just saying it's becoming something unrecognizable. Vanished into havoc, because havoc is like chaos and disarray. So yeah. But you could say, hey, if somebody breaks something into 1,000 pieces, you could say they destroyed it. But I mean, technically, it's still there. It's just not, in the same form. So I think that's what she was saying. And just the fact that she didn't have eyes, yet she was still seeing. There's a quote on another movie. I forgot what movie, but it says, you won't need eyes to see where we're going. What movie was that? Lawrence Fishburne was in it, but somebody had cut out their own eyes, and they were like, you won't need eyes to see where we're going. They had opened up a portal to hell. That's another sci-fi movie, but anyway, so that kind of reminded me of that. She's still seeing. She didn't need the eyes. So now the room itself, I'm gonna share my screen again. I'm gonna share another picture of what the room looked like. To me, it looks like a womb, and it looked like the entrance and exit to the room. It looked like the birth canal, if you know what I mean. So let me see if I can find her inside of it. Okay, well, this might be the only picture I saved of it. Okay, so this is the entrance. This is the tunnel. Into where the biologist found Ventress. So yeah, Ventress was sitting there kind of just like talking nonsense, basically. But I mean, this isn't the best picture of it, but if you watch the movie, you will see that the way it's shaped, it it kind of looks like a vag, of a JJ. You know what I'm saying? So I thought that was interesting because I mean, the obvious, the obvious um implication would be birth, right? Or in this case, rebirth. But I mean, things don't go into the well. Actually, no. And now that I think about it, I was gonna say things don't go into the vajayjay, but things come out. Obviously, things do go into the vajayjay, and then once they're in there, they eventually it turns into something else, and it comes out. So that reminds me of like birth, I guess you could say. Yes, rebirth. So Ventress, she's having some kind of otherworldly experience. She's learning things that she never knew. Um, okay, and uh, okay, so she said, so Ventress, she comes to herself, her eyes come back, and she said, "We spoke. What was it that we said?" And so then Ventress said, she answered herself. She said that I needed to know what was inside the lighthouse. That moment's past. It's inside of me now. And so the biologist said, "What's inside you?" And Ventress said, "It's not like us. It's unlike us. I don't know what it wants or if it wants, but it will grow until it encompasses everything. Our bodies and our minds will be fragmented into their smallest parts until not one part remains. Annihilation." So after she gives that little speech, it's like it looks like she screams, but her voice comes out, but also light comes out of her, like light and sparks and colors. They just come out of her, and she actually gets burned up in the process. You could see her body like starting to glow. And when something is like not on fire, but it's like smoldering, it's turning like let's just say like a stick. It may not be on fire, but it's still orange because it's like, I don't know what that's called when it's that's what happened to her. And so the sparks start going all around the room, and the main character, Lena, it's terrifying to see, but she's still looking because hey, when you think about it, hey, that's what she actually came to see. No matter how scary it was going to be, she came to see like what is actually going on with the lighthouse. What is the source of the shimmer. So as it's happening, you can see, okay, so this picture, I think it represents enlightenment because you can see the reflection in her eyes, but you can see like it's light. So I think that kind of makes that makes me think of enlightenment. So she's seeing something. It's horrible, it's scary, but I mean, it's the truth. She's seeing the truth. So let me see, I'm gonna share another picture if I have it. Okay, so after Ventress's body kind of like smolders away, I think smoldering was the word I was looking for. After her body like smolders away, there is this let me see if I can find it. I'm gonna try to see if I can find a picture of it. Damn. Okay, I might not be able to find a picture of it because I don't know what it's called. Like, I don't know what it's called. So, but hey, if you see the movie, then you'll see what I'm talking about. So, the sparks and flames, they kind of coalesce and come together, and then it's just this shape, and you can't describe it. It's like a fractal shape, and it's just going inside and outside it's itself, and it's different colors, and it looks like a big cloud, but like a cloud made of a bunch of symmetrical parts. And so she was just looking at it like like, because obviously she never seen anything like that before, and she was looking into it because it looked like a portal. So as she's looking into it, you see that drop of blood by her eyes. It went into the portal, and then it started dividing in like cells. It started dividing and growing just like cells, and it was doing it really fast. So um all her cells, they came, that grew and divided, they came together and they formed the shape of a person. I'm gonna show you. um yeah, they came together and they formed the shape like of a person. um and once she saw it, it was, it was terrifying. Let me see if I can put on the music. Hold on. Let me put on, because I like the music on this part. Wait, hold on. Let me see. Let me see, y'all. Um, and hopefully I don't get flagged. I don't know. Let's see. Y'all bear with me. I'm just trying to find some music for the atmosphere. Annihilation. Okay. If my stream gets cut short, you know what happened. um can y'all hear this? All right, so basically once the new being um it coalesces, she screams and she starts shooting at it. And but when she shoots at it, it doesn't destroy it. It just, the bullets kind of go into it and it stretches its body so that it has like a lot of just little things sticking out from its body, because the bullet didn't actually pierce it. It just kind of like went into it and pushed its skin out, if that makes sense. And so once she saw that happening, then she threw down the gun and she ran out. She ran out of this area right here, which to me looks like a birth canal. Like I said, is the music too loud? Let me know if the music is too loud, if anybody in here. Turn it back down. Okay, so she runs out, and then when she runs out of the what I consider, what I think looks like a birth canal, once she runs out of there, this is what she sees when she runs out. So the thing already made it, somehow it just like, ended up outside of um the meteor hole, and it was waiting for her. So I named this picture, when I saved it, I named it "Nice to Meet Me." Like, nice to meet you, nice to meet me. Because, this is, it's kind of like her child. You can see like the things sticking out of its back, the protuberances. That's where she shot it, and the bullets just kind of like didn't pierce it, but just made those projections in its back. So all right, so then at that point, actually I could just put that back up. So at that point, she's trying to get away from it. She's trying to get past it, but it's not letting her pass. Is whatever she's doing, the this thing, this analog, I don't know what you would call it, is like doing the same thing that she's doing. It's, it kind of looks like it's mocking her or something. So she tries to get out, and she's not able to get out because the thing is like pressing her against the door. So once she passes out, the thing also, it doesn't, I guess it doesn't pass out, but when she passes out and falls to the ground, the dummy or analog, it also falls to the ground just the same time she did. And it also, when she hit it, it also hit her back. So okay, so then when she woke up, it also woke up, quote unquote, woke up. You should find a picture of that. I'm almost to the end, y'all. So I named this picture, when I saved it, I named it "Reflected Defeat," because she was defeated, but even though she was defeated by this thing, because she was defeated, it was also defeated, if that makes sense. So yeah. So as she starts waking up, the thing sits up as well. So what happens is she's not knowing how, she doesn't know how she's going to get out. So what she did was she found another phosphorus grenade, and then she lit it, or whatever, pulled the pin or whatever, and then she handed it to the thing, the dummy or analog. She handed it to it, and it took it, and but as she made contact with its hand, it turned into her. um it actually developed, features, a skin tone, hair and all that. And the blood on the side of his face, it looked exactly like her. So she handed it to the thing, and then she ran out. And so the bomb went off, and the thing actually stayed in there and just, caught on fire, and and I guess it died. So um now at the end of the movie, um the scientist that's interviewing Lena, he says, so it was alien. He says, can you describe its form? She says no. And he said, was it carbon based? Or and she said, I don't know. So what he means by, is it carbon based? What life on Earth is carbon based. That's why they say it's organic. Organic is like a reference to I guess carbon. I'm not sure exactly. I'm not a scientist, y'all, so I don't know exactly how to explain it, but I do know that life on Earth is carbon based. So that's what he's asking, because theoretically other forms of life could exist that's based on um uh other universal like solvents besides water, because our life is based on water. Our existence is based on water, but there could be, life somewhere else that's based on a different solvent. So yeah. So that's why he asked, was it carbon based? She said, I don't know. And he said, what did it want? She said, I don't think it wanted anything. And so he said, but it attacked you. So she said, it mirrored me. I attacked it. I'm not even sure it knew I was there. Um so I thought that was interesting, that I'm not sure it even knew I was there. Because it makes me think of different levels of consciousness. I mean, we're conscious, right? But something that's much more intelligent than us is, could be considered to be more conscious than we are, right? But whereas an ant, it has an experience, a subjective experience that's much more limited than what we experience. Whereas a plant, I don't think a plant is conscious at all. I don't, could be wrong, but pretty sure, or like a worm, you know what I mean? Some things, the only thing they do is just find food or whatever. So that made me think of differing forms of consciousness, and also like the fact that its behavior was not malicious. If it didn't know she was there, then its behavior couldn't have been malicious. It was just a reflection of her behavior. So I mean, you could take that different ways. So the scientist in the biohazard suit, he said it came here for a reason. It was mutating our environment. It was destroying everything. So Lena responded. She said it wasn't destroying, it was changing everything. It was making something new. um so yeah, and that was pretty much the whole theme of the movie. Not the fact that it's not destroying, but it's changing things and making it new. It can be scary, but at the same time, I mean, if you think about it from a nihilistic point of view, how is what we have now how is it better or more valuable than what the shimmer was creating? So basically, once the shimmer disappeared, um but yeah, the shimmer disappeared after she destroyed that thing. So the shimmer disappeared, and her quote unquote husband's condition improved. Uh he regained consciousness and stuff. So they let her see him, and she said, you aren't Kane, are you? And so he said, I don't think so. And he said, are you Lena? So they start hugging each other, and you see both of their eyes, and both of their eyes are like flickering with gold. Okay, you think plants are conscious? I know that plants do lean towards the light and stuff, but hey, guess we'll never know. So yeah, so let me repeat that part again. She went to see her husband because he got better after the shimmer disappeared. And so she said, "You weren't Cain, are you?" And he said, "I don't think so." And he said, "Are you Lena?" She didn't answer him, but she hugged him. And so the camera showed both of their eyes, first his eyes, then her eyes. And you can see both of their eyes are like glowing with golden like specks and stuff like that. So the implication is that neither of them are who they started out as, because Cain died inside the lighthouse. So I think what was supposedly happened is, I don't know, maybe Lena also died inside the lighthouse. It showed her running out, but maybe it wasn't actually her running out. Maybe it was the analog running out, or maybe her consciousness got transferred or something like that. Um it kind of makes sense because okay, so when Cain got out, he didn't know what was going on. Like he had no idea what was going on. Um he was just like, yeah, whatever. And that's kind of how Lena was when she, well, no, she wasn't that bad. No, she wasn't that bad. But it makes sense because I thought about like the movie Superman. You know how when he came to Earth, like when his pod or whatever came to Earth, he was a baby. Um he 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 was going to grow up to be Superman, but at the time he was just a baby. So he has to grow and he has to learn. So if if what escaped from the lighthouse is really the copy or the analog, then it makes sense that it would be confused because it does not know what's going on. So uh okay, so what I'm thinking is going on is that Lena did not actually escape the lighthouse. I think that the analog who thought it was Lena, or attached itself to Lena or traded places with Lena, that's what actually left the lighthouse. So yeah, that part is ambiguous. Um, this kind of reminds me of some conversation that we had a while back about the identity problem. Like if there was a copy of you, um, that was uploaded to the cloud, would it actually be you? Would a copy of your brain actually be you? Because anyway, I'm not gonna get into that, but it reminds me of that, because whatever it is, it thinks it's Lena, or it suspects that it's not Lena. But what I'm saying is, in a way, I guess it is her. It's taking her form, whatever. Um so that made me think, okay, so Lena and Cain were supposed to be the only two things that escaped from the shimmer. But when you think about it, if they didn't actually get out, then did anything actually escape? Yes, the analogs or the replacements, they came from the shimmer, but it wasn't nothing went into the shimmer and then got back out, basically. So that reminds me again of a black hole. Um uh yeah, no, and you can't like um uneat the apple, right? The apple from the tree of life, you can't uneat the apple, and you can't close Pandora's box. So once it's open, it's open. So um now the shimmer retreated after both of them got out. So what I noticed is that a male and a female both got out, even though they happen to be husband and wife. So okay, um the little dummy thing, it was created from a drop of her blood that like started dividing and separating and growing like cells. But the way humans procreate is with a one male and one female, right? So it, to me, it made sense that like, okay, Cain got out, but the shimmer was still there. But as soon as, well, Cain's whatever replacement got out, and but the shimmer didn't leave. But once Lena's replacement got out, then the shimmer went away. Is it because the whole purpose of the shimmer and the meteor was to colonize Earth? You see what I'm saying? Um yeah, because at that point the shimmer wasn't really needed anymore. And remember, Ventress, it kind of took over her, so she understood what was going on. And she said, it's not like us, it's unlike us. I don't know what it wants or if it wants, but it will grow until it encompasses everything. Our bodies and our minds will be fragmented into their smallest parts until not one part remains. Annihilation. So what I think is going on is that whatever this other life form is, it is it's basically colonizing the earth. So yeah. And once they got a male and a female, the shimmer wasn't needed anymore. But maybe it was just going to keep growing and growing until it, got the what it needed in order to ensure like that it was going to spread, on Earth. So, so I don't know if they're making a comment on like the origin of life or different types of life. Um, I don't know. I don't know. So, okay, but this is one thing I thought about. I did ask earlier on, if we are kind of like cells in the sense of, or in the scope of the universe, because we grow, we replicate, or not replicate, but we reproduce, and we have a finite lifespan, just like cells do. So if cells make up the human body, and we make up a part of the universe, so you could kind of think of us as cells. And it kind of makes sense if you don't believe in free will, right? We can be conscious but not necessarily have free will. What if we can only do what we're programmed to do, or either genetically or just through um what we've learned in our experiences and stuff like that. So um she said, I don't think it wanted anything. So that made me think, okay, so if it doesn't even know what's going on, but it knows to like replicate and go to different planets or whatever, it made me think like, okay, well, are we like agents of the universe? Are we just doing what the universe wants us to do? You see what I mean? Like, is what we're doing, and how we're carrying on, is that part of like the development of the universe? You know what I mean? As opposed to like our own choices. That makes sense. So, okay, so I'm gonna trying to see if I want to do this tonight. I could just call it a night and have a part two like tomorrow, and I think that's what I'm gonna do because I don't want to rush through it. Because I still want to talk about um the nihilistic themes in the movie, and I also want to talk about the book. Uh yeah, and I don't want to rush it, and my mouth is like dry as hell right now, so I'm gonna call it a night. Thank you for everybody that came through. Thank you to everybody who dropped a like. I was hoping to see some people that didn't come in, because we could have had a great conversation, but I will be back maybe tomorrow, I'm not sure. At some point, soon, I will be back for the second half of part 2 of this live, where I'm going to so I already talked about nihilism, and I already talked about annihilation. So I'm gonna basically talk about like what how the plot or the themes of annihilation reflect nihilism, and then some other philosophies that could also be it could also be illustrating, through the movie. And then I'm also going to talk about the book, because I did read the book, because it was only like 200 something pages. So I went ahead and read it. And thank you, Lena. Thank you so much. I know it's not that long, but maybe you know what I'm gonna say. I think you should watch the movie. I know I kind of gave it away, but watch the movie. I think you should watch the movie. The movie is interesting, especially the end. But yeah, and like I said, tomorrow I'm going to talk about the book. I went ahead and read the book because it was only like a couple hundred pages long, and I did like highlight some stuff in the book. So I want to go over what I highlighted from the book as well. So I think that would probably be like at least another hour. So I'm not about to do that tonight, and I want to give it the time that it deserves. So yeah. Thank you to everybody who came through, everybody who dropped a like, anybody that'll be watching this in the future. You're the greatest. And I can't wait to talk more about philosophy as I learn more. And Lena, one of these days, we're going to get you up on a panel. It don't have to be my panel, but it's going to be somebody panel. Damn it. All right. Thank y'all, and let me close out with my song. Close out with my song. This is my little song that I got to give a disclaimer on. Like, hopefully, it don't offend anybody. All right, y'all have a good night.
Nothing but the same for me. Heart broken into where my brain should be. Wait for me. Don't leave without a second glance. Not again. Oh, what a shame, what a shame. Oh, what a shame, what a shame. Oh, what a shame, what a shame. God's gone, God's gone, God's gone. God's gone, God's gone, God's gone. For once, can you listen? Is that too much to ask for? Before the seasons change, before it gets cold, can you at least pretend? Can you at least pretend? Life of a pessimist, only a fool believes there is a God in the sky who listens to the plea of his child. How could he leave us all alone? Leave us all alone. How could he leave us all alone? Leave us all alone. Oh, what a shame, what a shame. Oh, what a shame, what a shame. Oh, what a shame, what a shame. God's gone, God's gone, God's gone. God's gone, God's gone, God's gone. For once, can you listen? Is that too much to ask for? Before the seasons change, before it gets cold, can you at least pretend? Can you at least pretend?
Can you listen? Is that too much to ask for? Before the seasons change, before it gets cold, can you at least pretend? Can you